Well, welcome back. The Home Secretary has signed a new treaty with Rwanda for the government's asylum plan. The government wants to make the deal to send migrants to Rwanda legally watertight after the Supreme Court's ruling against the scheme. But let's speak now to Daniel Sohej, a specialist in international refugee law and protection and the director of human rights organisation Stand for All. Welcome to you. So why, first of all, was Rwanda deemed unsafe? And why was the plan unlawful? And will this fix it?
Well, there were several reasons it was found to be unsafe. One of the main ones, though, was that Rwanda carries out, or is expected to carry out, what's known as a refoulement. That's where you return people to an unsafe country. And it violates not only the Refugee Convention, but several fundamental principles of international human rights law. Now, in their judgment, the Supreme Court specifically cited concerns over the fact that a previous deal with Israel, where the Israeli government had taken obligations off Rwanda not to send people back to unsafe countries, had been breached. So by coming up with a treaty this time around with the UK government, they still haven't addressed the issues that the Supreme Court was really flagging in this, because they're just doing the same thing over and over again.
Well, I mean, that's not entirely true, is it? I mean, James Cleverly says he thinks this answers all the questions of the Supreme Court, and there is quite a list. For example, the new treaty means British and Commonwealth judges will preside over a newly established appeals process within Rwanda's High Court, a commitment that no one will be removed by Rwanda to any other country other than to the UK, that issue that you mentioned of refoulement. Experts from the UK will also be seconded to Rwanda to assist with the processing of asylum decisions. People sent to Rwanda will have free legal assistance funded by the taxpayer throughout the process. I mean, you know, a number of these issues were raised by the Supreme Court. Does it change the playing field here?
It really doesn't, because what it doesn't state in the treaty is that the UK will monitor each and every single person who goes to Rwanda, who is sent there, how their claims are processed after they've been processed. So what's happening to them after those claims have happened. That's the real crucial part of this, because once we could send any amount of judges and lawyers to Rwanda, and I think there are questions to be asked why we're not investing into our own asylum system as much as we're investing into theirs. But we aren't saying that we are then going to monitor everything that happens afterwards. Now, we've seen with this previous Israeli deal that of the 4,000 who were sent to Rwanda, majority left rapidly afterwards. Many of them were found to have been trafficked. But also, we're having to say, forevermore, everybody we send out there, if their claim was rejected by the Rwandan authorities and they aren't returned to the UK, because this deal does state that the only place that they can be returned to if their claims are found illegitimate under Rwandan law is back to the UK, which seems to be a bit contrary to the whole principle of the plan anyway, then we're going to have to monitor them to make sure that they aren't at a later date sent back to unsafe countries.
I mean, you're basically saying you don't believe the treaty that was signed and the watertight promises in it. That's what you're just sort of throwing doubt on it with no real evidence that that might happen.
Well, I'm saying that this has already been seen to happen by the Israeli deal, that they had obligations taken from Rwanda not to refund people, not to send them back to an unsafe country. And those obligations were broken, as the Supreme Court found. So this isn't my personal opinion. This is in the Supreme Court's ruling. And without having that constant monitoring of everybody who goes to Rwanda, what is happening to them 6 months after their claim was rejected, if it's rejected, a year, 2 years, we cannot specifically say they will not be sent back to an unsafe country. If they aren't coming back to the UK, we have no way of making sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think it was the UN Refugee Agency, wasn't it, who told the Supreme Court that Rwanda had turned down 100% of all asylum claims made by people from Afghanistan, Yemen and Syria between 20 and 2022. 3 nations who have been at war and clearly have people who are trying to leave those nations. So that is a tricky bit. What would you do, though? Because other countries are looking very closely at what Britain is doing. Austria, we know, Germany, other countries looking at other nations as well. People are beginning to think that offshoring is the best way to stop illegal migration, to stop asylum seekers coming by boat or however else they're coming. How would you stop the boats?
Well, the first and most obvious reason to stop channel crossings, which I think it's really important to flag, make up fewer than half of the asylum claims. So we're making 100% of rhetoric effectively over fewer than half the claims. But we need to be making sure that people can access asylum, whether in the UK or in other EU countries, safely. That means that they don't have to make the dangerous crossings. It also means that we can actually keep better tabs of who's coming in and making sure we're processing their claims more effectively. So we need to invest in our own systems first before we start investing in the systems of countries 4,000 miles away. This seems fairly logical. And even the Home Office's own assessment about 10, 13 years ago showed that harsher policies like this don't deter people. People still come to these countries because they've got normally community links is one of the main reasons. It just drives them over the end.
Apologies, we're running out of time. No doubt we'll talk again. It's an ongoing subject, as you well know. Daniel Soage, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
Now, trans prisoners.